Okay, so it is a beautiful day out here at the Cave House. Okay, and today we're going to be getting into the real nitty-gritty. Okay, we're going to be talking, this is our overview, squatting 101. What is squatting? Okay, what is squatting? Well, for our purposes, we're going to define squatting as occupying space outside of the traditional property ownership model. Okay, and by property ownership, I mean a construct in our mind and also a legal system of property ownership. Okay, so before we can even touch on squatting, we have to look at property ownership, right? Property ownership. Okay, and there's two fundamental A number one and B number two things I want you to understand about property ownership. Okay, first, it hadn't been around that long. Okay, the ideas of property ownership as we know them are very, very new compared to the history of civilization and people occupying space. Okay, property ownership came out of the European feudal system. Okay, and under that system, it was kind of a bum deal for the peasantry. Okay, because you were serfs, right? The lord, the king, they own you, and they own, and they find no territory to see who they own. And it's like whoever's on that land, I own them. Okay, that's my serf. Okay, and that's that's rough. Okay, but then, and a lot of civilizations around the world have had this kind of feudal model. Okay, not just Europe, but the idea of serf and peasantry is old. That is an old idea, but not property ownership, because property ownership. Okay, we got all these feudal lords in Europe, and all of a sudden they realize, wait a minute. The money's in the land. I own the land. The people just in the way. Okay, the people should be paying me to use that land. Okay, and they do so. And this is sparked by a couple things. Okay, this is sparked by the Industrial Revolution, beginning of that. There's kind of parallel in that, and it's also sparked by weird little things like the price of wool. Okay, the price of wool from sheep goes up in Europe. Okay, so the lords realize, man, I got all the sheep grazing on the land is getting me more money than the people living on the land. Okay, so I want the people off the land and I want my sheep on it. Okay, and this is called the enclosures. Okay, when they come up with this new idea that like, okay, maybe you're a little bit more free, maybe we give you a little bit more freedom, but all the space that you occupy is not free to occupy. It is mine. It is mine. And it's worth more money than you have the sheep on there. So get out. Okay? So all these people are losing a traditional way of life, which is communal fields. Okay? So up until this point, there was commons. They were called the commons. And they weren't owned by nobody. Okay? It's just where the people were able to grow food. Okay, and they even had systems where, each family had a big long row, okay, and then no families got the rows together. They alternated the whole pattern so that nobody got like the good field or a bad field. Okay, this is how people are living. This is how agriculture works. Okay, and then all of a sudden someone's saying, no, get the fuck off. My sheep are here now. Okay, and it's called the enclosures. Okay, and the people, they go buck, man. They go fucking buck. Okay, they guillotines, man. We got the diggers and the levelers and fucking revolution and all these people saying, hell no. Fight the enclosures. Fight the enclosures. The land is where it's at. How are they going to take the land? How are they going to take space away from us? Okay, we was born here. This is the space that we live in. What do you mean that someone not even here owns it? So I can't be here? Okay, so people, they're going nuts. Okay, and there's a lot of, man, all over. This is huge news. Okay, but, got to kill them. Okay, so they kill them, got bam, and they dead. Okay, so then, these Europeans, right, they started saying, hey, these lords and the landowners, okay, they're saying, yeah, there's a lot of money in land. Let's build us some ships. Okay, let's go over the sea. Okay, and then we're gonna see what we find, and you know, if we got the doctrine of discovery. Okay, so if there ain't no Christians over there, it's mine. Okay, and I put my flag on it, and then it's my land. Okay, and then property ownership will get out. Okay, and you know, and then okay, so they come on over to North America. Okay, and the people here, they saying, what's up, dude? Hey, chill out, you know, and bam, okay, they dead. Okay, get rid of them. Okay, they no good. Okay, you know, and they got property ownership, because we got property ownership. Okay, now it's all owned up. Okay, so, and that's the story of North America. Okay, that's the story of South America. Okay, that's the story of a lot of Africa, a lot of Asia. Definitely the story of Australia. Okay, and then it's also the story of more modern times of kind of, you know, UN, IMF, loans, WTF, that shit, you know, and they imposing, they telling all developing nations everywhere, yeah, we'll help you out, but you gotta play by some certain rules, okay, and them rules, they call property ownership, okay, and you best obey, okay, but all this is new, okay, so for millennia, and in lots of different ways, people were living before this idea that space can be commodified and owned. Okay, that's the new, that the space itself, the land, is owned. Okay, and that's new. Okay, so that's the number one thing I want you to understand about property ownership. Okay, and the B number two thing I want you to understand about property ownership is how deeply embedded in our psyche the idea of property ownership is, right? Okay, so for example, when we talk about opposition to property ownership or alternatives to property ownership, people very, very, very quickly go to a place of, what? I don't want just nobody, you know, squatters coming into my house, and then I got no, you know, this is my house, you know, it's my cave. Okay, I don't want nobody, you know, moving in, messing with my cave. Okay, and I feel that. Okay, I don't want nobody messing with my cave. Okay, you stay the hell away from my cave. Okay, but again, let's look. People have lived most civilization without this idea of owned space as a commodity. Okay, and they've lived with houses, with privacy. You know, when we say no property ownership, people thinking, oh, that means no my own privacy, no my own house. No, there's other systems that incorporate people having their basic needs met, and I would argue incorporate them much better, okay, than property ownership. Okay, because property ownership, this idea that land is a commodity, and it can be bought and sold. Okay, and that opens it up to markets and speculation, and it opens it up to, you know, stratification within society of who has access to your basic being. Okay, because property ownership, it is crazy. It is fundamentally insane that our country is based on this idea that the United States is free. Okay, freedom. Okay, but what the hell does that mean if you don't have the basic freedom to exist in a space, okay, without owning or buying in, okay? And some people are born owning, and some people are not. Some people are capable of working themselves into owning, some people are not. But what is owning? And how do people live when they're not owning? Okay, you got to pay rent to somebody else who's owning, and even when you owning, you pay the taxes to the government, right? You gotta pay on that. Okay, so this idea of property ownership is kind of kooky. Okay, that I could be in a cave right now, owned by somebody who has not set foot on his property for a decade. Okay, you know, that's crazy, right? That's insane, and especially when we couple that with the fact that we need to exist. We have that basic human, you know, we're born in this world existing in space. Who owns that space? Is it a mama and a papa? Is it a slumlord? Is it a, an absentee gold miner that was here 100 years ago and still, passes the deed down? Or, it's a weird way of looking at space, and it's deeply, deeply ingrained to the point that talking about alternatives, talking about trying to feel out what property ownership is, can be tricky, really, and it gets fuzzy, and it tugs at kind of some of our values of but people should be free. Okay, yes, free to own a piece of land and do what you want. What if you was just kind of free to do what you want, steward space? It doesn't. And anyways, there's lots of alternative models to property ownership. So that's the A's number ones and B's number twos I want you to understand about property ownership as we move into talking about squatting, which we've defined as occupying space outside of traditional property ownership. Okay? Now, here's the lesson on this, is that we ain't even scratching the surface today. But I just want you to go home and think about what kind of different scenarios that encompasses, because that is huge. That is a homeless person seeking shelter in an abandoned building. Okay, that is the gentleman that took over the Anwar National Birdie Refuge with the guns. They had the guns, bang, bang, the cowboy guys. Okay, and they occupied that space. Okay, and it encompasses, on the flip side of that, the Occupy Wall Street and that, movement. It also encompasses a lot of the history of how our country was actually pioneered. Okay, a lot of that Homestead Act, that famous, everybody gets 80 acres, go out west. That wasn't signed until 1863. Okay, and even that, after that, it was more complicated than that too. Most of the pioneering done in the West was actually squatters that were occupying space illegally. Okay, and the history of pioneering in the West is actually a history of the government cracking down on people and taking away homesteads and saying, no, sorry, somebody else owns this. Okay, so it's a long history there, and then we have a real long history of indigenous people occupying their own land. Okay, very, very famous example we'll get into in a couple of episodes here is the Alcatraz occupations, because there's a couple of them that really shaped the nation in the 1970s, and it marked a shift in how the federal government related with the tribes of this country who are still living here and still occupying their own space. Okay, so it's very there are so many different examples of squatting just within this country. Okay, and we're also going to look a little bit internationally and kind of tie this movement in, because as this idea of property ownership, colonized the world, there's been people struggled against it everywhere. Okay, so yeah, we're going to get into all this. Just like and subscribe on YouTube, and then fuck it, then we in. Okay, baby, let's go. Squatting rocks.